Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you're joining from. Welcome to our sixth and final episode of the Digital Transformation webinar series for 2022. Thank you so much, guys, for attending our previous episodes. They were so insightful, informative, and amazing. My name is Mark Burnett, and I'm a project manager out of Kingston, Jamaica, and my co-host Jim. Hello, Jim. You're there, Jim. Okay, so Jim is my co-host. Jim is a project manager based out of the Boston area. So thanks again for coming out, guys. Today we have a great topic for our digital transformation space. So the topic is how quickly to make impressive timeline slides for executives that gets read. We think this is a very, very, very important topic because digital transformation projects are complex. It's complex. So it's very important to have a tool that can help us how to simplify our road mapping, you know, our project forecast. So today we have our amazing speaker, Jonathan Stumbles, who is the vice president from Office Timeline, and he will show us how to make our planning impressive. How to make these slides that will get read, so we are able to get the seamless buy-in from our sponsors or executives, and also to drive swift decision making from our team members. So, John.
Hey, Mark.
Yes, hi, John. Thanks for coming out today, John. Do you want to give us a quick intro of yourself, John?
Yeah. So good morning, everybody. My name, as Mark said, is Jonathan, and it's my pleasure to be invited on the webinar. I'm actually really excited to be here. I like the program that you guys are running. Um, as you said, I work for a startup. We're out of Seattle called Office Timeline, and we are trying to make life easier for PMOs, exactly as you mentioned in the digital space. The biggest pain point that we've heard over the years from the PMO organization, from project managers uh, in general, is comes across as two things when they're reporting. The first feedback we hear constantly, it doesn't matter how big the PMO org is, doesn't matter how long someone's been with the experience they have, whether they're just starting or whether they're a seasoned veteran, they constantly say the same thing, which is it takes too long to create these reports. Um, and and typically we hear that execs and stakeholders, for whatever reason, are still love to see reports in PowerPoint. It's funny when you think about that, given the tools that we have, and like with the web and mobile and all those other sorts of things. But it's common that executives today are still using PowerPoint. Um, and PowerPoint's great, but PowerPoint can be challenging at times. If you've worked with PowerPoint, you know it can be fiddly. You've got to move objects around. If your data suddenly changes, you've now got to go back to your slide and make more changes. And again, all of that feeds back into that pain point, which we've heard is, hey, it just takes too long to create this reports, especially if I've got multiple projects, especially if I've got a rhythm, like I have to report maybe every 2 weeks or once a month. So that's one of the areas we came into the space and tried to solve. The second piece we've heard of feedback from folks is nobody reads them. So I spend all this time putting together this presentation. It's taking this long time, and I give it to my execs or my audience, our stakeholders, and I feel like nobody's reading it, nobody's digesting the reports. And I think um, often that comes in because a lot of project managers, they have maybe 5 minutes or 10 minutes to brief their execs about what's going on. They've got to drive a conversation, and it's difficult, right? If you want to convey your project information um, to people who are not really into the details, you can't show them the whole project plan, right? You can't open up your project plan and show them all the tasks and subtasks. It's just not going to fly. And so it's difficult to drive that conversation in a short amount of time and get to decisions and things like that. So that's the other large piece of feedback we've heard of. Hey, my reports, I feel like they're not getting read. Um, and we feel like, well, if we can make your report easy to digest, if an exec can look at your slide and go, okay, that's easy for me to see, it's easy for me to understand what's going on with the project. Hopefully that'll solve that problem of getting read. So all of that's a very long-winded introduction. Sorry to be blabbing on here, but that's how Office Timeline came about. I'm going to actually show a little of what this can do, of where we see we can solve these problems. But just before I get into that, Mark or Jim, any questions or anything you want me to touch on?
Actually, no, Jonathan, more housekeeping. Folks, up on the screen, the main screen to the right, you can click it into full screen. There are 4 arrows pointing in 4 different directions. You recognize that. So I'd recommend putting it into full screen when you're watching, if you haven't already. And secondly, housekeeping. I'm going to monitor the chat. I always monitor the chat while Mark is the host. So if you have any questions, send them via chat. We tend to get them at the end of the session. However, I told Jonathan, if somebody says they need clarification, I might interrupt them. Otherwise, we'll do the questions at the end, however long we are. We're usually 45 minutes to an hour. So those are two housekeeping things I wanted to say. Other than that, Jonathan, unless you have questions or observations, Mark, I'd say go.
Yes, and just to add to that as well, Jim, if you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A section, and Jim will address them accordingly.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, chat. I don't know if there is a Q&A, but just to keep it all in one place, I'd go with chat.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Perfect. Yep.
So the floor is yours, Jonathan.
All right.
Yes.
Well, thanks, you guys. So what is it we do, right? I've just given this little spiel about how people feel like it takes too long to create reports, and they feel like they're not getting read. And to put that in just a little bit of context, many of us at Office Timeline actually used to do this work. To be totally transparent, many of us used to work at Microsoft, and we had to go through this. We had to go through these. They called them rhythm of the business. We'd have a monthly business review, and every time you presented, you had to have your slides, and it takes a long time, and then data's late getting to you, and you've got to modify it. So anyway, so that's how Office Timeline came to be born, was to try and solve that problem. And so what I'm going to show you is it's a plugin that is used for PowerPoint to help solve these problems. So I'm going to share my screen. Bear with me just for a moment here, please. Okay, so here's my screen, and as Jim suggested, make sure you expand if you can, so you can get the full view. This is not something I can present. It's not slides that I'm presenting in presenter mode. We're actually going to go into PowerPoint and look at how you would work with this tool. So make sure you expand your screen, and I will start to walk you through what we're talking about here. So first of all, Office Timeline, it's a plugin, it's an add-in. You just add it into PowerPoint, pretty easy. And the point is to be able to drive reporting slides. So I'm going to give you a couple examples here just to show you what things might look like. these are just basic examples that people have created with Office Timeline. So as I click through these, you can see, let me get to the a very basic one. Here's a very basic one with your time band, your milestones, and your tasks. We can start to get into timelines that bucket things within swim lanes. So if you want to create multiple reports or programs on a slide to present to your stakeholders, you can group them here into swim lanes and put your tasks and milestones. Uh, the tool, depending on the version you get, allows you to get a little bit more granular. So now with this particular slide, it's sort of the same layout. Here I can now have sub swim lanes. So I'm taking these programs or projects on the left here and further subdividing them, again with tasks and milestones. And we just recently released the ability to add dependencies here. So these arrows show dependencies, and they can also highlight critical path. This is a brand new function. All of this is what Office Timeline is designed to do. It's designed to make rich, beautiful slides that hopefully when your stakeholders look at them, it's easy for them to digest, and you can drive that conversation. But more importantly, it's easy for you to create. It doesn't take a lot of time, and that's key. So what this tool will do is going to generate this visual here, and I'm going to show you different ways of how to do that. These are just regular PowerPoint slides. This tool will generate this visual, and then things like these, like titles or legends or scorecards, you can just add to your slide. So let me find another example of that. So for example, here, this particular visual is what the tool created. And then these items here are just regular PowerPoint objects that you can add to your slide. Okay, so that's the end goal. So all right, well, how easy is it to use? We hopefully think it's super easy, and hope that you will too. And there's a couple different ways that you can use the tool. So one, I'm going to start from scratch. I'm going to show you how you can do it if you're just whiteboarding and need to come up with something fast. I'll show you. We get a lot of project managers who actually manage their data in Excel, which is absolutely fine. Whether that's actually in Excel itself, or maybe they're exporting it from Jira. We have project managers who work within Smartsheet or who use MS Project. All of these applications that they use to store and manage their project data, we can work with, and you can take that information and quickly create a report slide from it. So I'll show you different ways to do that. So let's pretend I'm whiteboarding. Maybe I'm in a situation where got to come up with a plan or a rough outline in a couple minutes, got to present, and I need to build something. And so if you're in that situation, I'm going to come over here. I'm on the Office Timeline ribbon in PowerPoint, and there's a new button. And if I click that, I'm going to select from scratch here. And that opens up a number of templates that come with the tool that you can just pick. If you see a design that works for you, you just go ahead and pick it. I'm going to choose this really simple one here. This is a marketing one. And when I click this, it opens up this window. It gives me sample data, and it gives me a template of a timeline. Okay, well, that's good in that I don't have to design it. I don't have to put my artist hat and think of, I got to start creating objects on a slide. It's not good in the sense that, hey, this isn't my data. This doesn't help me. I've got to edit. How do I edit this data? Well, it's really fast and easy to do this. So on this screen here, we have this timeline tab. This is a drag and drop environment. Next to it is this data tab, and that's the data supporting that visual. And you can edit either one. Doesn't matter, whatever you prefer. So I'm going to edit the drag and drop environment because for me, as someone who doesn't have a lot of time in my day, this is fast and easy. So let me just demo how that would look like. Couple things you can do. So first of all, any name can be changed. If I double click a name, I'm going to double click this milestone here. I can just give it a new name. I can click on this milestone and I can assign it a new date. So maybe this is something for my project. I can say, okay, this milestone happens on October 25th. I can drag it there. I could drag it under the time band. I could even place this milestone on a task. Similarly, tasks can be renamed and moved. So like the summit task here, it's a 7-day duration. If I give it a new name, let's just give it a new name. And then if I click and drag it, its 7 days duration remains locked, but its dates update. Or you can drag the left side of it, create a new start date, or drag the right side and adjust the end date. So with these tools, the idea is you don't have to spend a lot of time. You can take a template and quickly just drag and drop things around to match your project. Whatever project details you need to do, you can hopefully quickly edit them. You can add other things. So for example, I have tools up here. If I needed to add a swim lane, I can just say, let me do that. Add a swim lane, and maybe I got to give it a friend. And here you can add the sub swim lane. And then these are able to be shuffled about. You can move them up and down, and you can drag objects into them. So if you want to start assigning things to your swim lane buckets, you can drag your tasks and milestones around as you see fit. You can also shift this visual. So if I'm going to zoom out just a second here. If I say to myself, you know what, I want to put a scorecard down on the bottom there, I'm maybe going to shift this up, or I want to have a fancy title, I'm going to shift this down. I can compress it and say, I'm going to make room for some metrics here on my slide. So you have the ability to move this around. You can also do the same thing here on this data tab. So this is just a different way of working. If you're a data person who thinks a little bit better with grids, you can do the same things here. You can rename your tasks or your milestones. You can pick with this column tasks or milestones, shape and color. Here you can input your dates. You can input your duration. You can input percent complete. So this task is 55% complete. You could drag things around. It's just simply another way of editing. And whenever you're ready, you hit create and it'll generate a slide for you. So the purpose of me showing you this is really to look at the fundamentals of it really is easy to create a slide. If you need to edit it, you come back to these tools up here on the ribbon, this edit timeline or edit data, and that brings you back to this window here. And now you can do all the things you need to do. You can shift your milestones. You can maybe change your task dates or length, or shift them around and make quick edits, and then save it again, and you've got a slide. Okay, that's core kind of basic functionality. But my experience is folks generally don't tend to work that way. What they really work is they're going to have project data that they're taking from a tool. So let's look at that. So I have some project data here in Excel, and this is really bare minimum basic. This is the bare minimum our tool would need to create a timeline. So what you're going to need is you're going to need names. These would be names of your tasks or milestones, and then dates. And it'll interpret single dates like these. So these are single dates. Notice they're duplicated over here. They're the same thing. These would be milestones, or single dates like these would be milestones, and then date ranges. So I have a start, a finish, a start, a finish. These are date ranges. It'll interpret as tasks. So you can get data from Excel into this tool a couple different ways. One way that's fast and dirty, again, this is if you're in a hurry, is you can literally just copy this data. You could come over here and say, okay, I'm going to go to Office Timeline. I'm going to go new from scratch here. I get to that template window I briefly showed before. Here it is again. This time I'm picking this timeline from scratch. And now I have an almost empty data grid here. This there's a default row. I'm just going to remove it with this rubbish bin. And now we have a completely empty grid. And up here is this little clipboard. If you click that, you can just paste in your Excel data. It pastes it into the grid. Here we go back to the drag and drop environment. There's the timeline it created. And if you're happy with that, you can just hit create and it'll generate your slide for you. So now you can go from, hey, I've got data in Excel. I can copy and paste it and I can get a timeline within PowerPoint within a couple of seconds. And this is something I say to project teams is that's great. It's fast, but what if you don't love the style here? This is the default style the tool came up with. What if you're not a fan of that? We have this template button here that helps you stylize. So if you click this, you can experiment with different flavors and you can say, well, all right, that was fast, but I don't like it. Let me change the look and feel. Okay, I don't know if I like that one. Let me pick another one. What does it look like this? Okay, I might like that look and feel. And the recommendation we have for teams is, hey, if you have to create slides consistently, if you're reporting with a constant cadence, and perhaps you have to honor your corporate branding, maybe your styles need to have a certain look and feel, certain colors and fonts, or maybe your customers, you want to present with your customers and use their corporate branding. You can save those styles. So if we were to pretend this particular style, this blue and these fonts was that's like one of my customers that I'm presenting for, I can come to this template button here and up in the top left is another big plus button. I can save the style. So if I click that, I give it a name. I'll say, okay, maybe this is my customer number 1, and I can save that template. And now I have a style template that I can use going forward. So anytime I create a new reporting slide, I can use this template. I can also share that with my team. So I could say, all right, I'm going to send this slide to my team, and anyone else who has Office Timeline can save that template and they can use it. And now whenever the team reports, we all have the same look and feel. So it's a little bit more professional. We're all driving this a little bit of a same consistency, and we just look more of a cohesive unit. So that's just a tip.
John.
Yep.
John?
Yep.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. So would you say that's one of the advantage of using Office Timeline in your PMO is that it creates that end-to-end consistency when reporting from the project into C-suite?
Yep, absolutely, Mark. The advantages are here. Really, at the end of the day, is we want to save time. So we're saving time not only hopefully by making this work fast in terms of actually cobbling together the slide, but we're saving time in driving the cohesiveness, right? If you and I are on the same team and I don't have to look at your last slide or copy that color and say, hey, what font are you using? I better use the same font for my reports. Yeah, that's the idea is to drive that cohesiveness as you suggested.
Okay, great.
Okay, I've showed you some basic steps. I want to show you a little bit more fancier steps, if you will. And that's going to deal with how you can import into Office Timeline. And this is really where I think if I was driving reporting on a consistent basis, this is a workflow I would use. So there's 2 things you can do. I'm looking a little bit more now at a little bit of more of a richer project plan. So this could be Excel, this could be MS Project, this could be Smartsheet, what have you. In this example here, I have these three columns highlighted in green. Again, this is the minimum requirement the tool needs to create a timeline. You're going to need a name and dates. And then I have extra data as well. So one of the things I have here in column B is a swim lane. So we're calling it program. I have marketing data for these items. So this will be my marketing bucket. And there's a product bucket for these items here. And there's no bucket here. So these items will not be bucketed in a swim lane. There's also percent complete. There's some filtering, preemptive filtering. I'll talk a little bit about that. This and dates. So extra dates as well. All right. Just an example of what a simple project plan might look like. I'm going to come to Office Timeline here, and here we have this import ability. So now I'm going to import, and you can see we can pick from a number of different applications. I'll do a one for Emma's project as well in a moment here. I'll just quickly do this one with Excel. So first step is I just got to find the file. Okay, this is in my demo data here. So here's my Excel project. And now, first question, well, which worksheet are you using? That's easy peasy. So it's a nice, easy question to warm you up with. We're using the Pro Swim Lanes. Let me just select that. And that looks like our data. Okay, great. I'll hit next. And now this part of the wizard enables me to map columns. So why do I care about that? Why is that important? Couple reasons. One is our software here failed to pick up the swim lane. It didn't identify the program column as a swim lane. So, all right, let's help that out. We can just map it, say, all right, you can be a swim lane. And then, as I mentioned, there are a couple of dates columns. It defaulted to these actual start dates. If you didn't like that, if you wanted to change the columns in your workbook, you can just reassign, say, you know what, we're going to actually use these dates instead. So that's the purpose of this column mapping part of the wizard. And when you're happy with this, just hit next, and it takes you to the last step. And the last step here is filtering. And this is an important piece of information to think about. I often talk to project managers, and they say, you know, I make these slides and I bring in my project data, and then things are falling off the slide, and it's just unwieldy and way too much. And our response is, you know, you're right. You have to be mindful. There's limited real estate on a slide. That's just the fact. That's just the limitation we have to work within. So we have a rule of thumb. We say, you know, we find about 40 to 50 items, 40 to 50 tasks or milestones makes for a pretty good executive summary. You can bring in more. If you do, then you might find yourself doing gymnastics of space optimization and moving things around on the slide. It can be a little bit fiddly. So we recommend trying to whittle your data set down. And that's what this filtering portion is here. So if you have a really large data set, you can instead of selecting all, like I've done here, this button here, select all, you might cherry pick items. Yeah, that works. Not fun if you got lots of data, though. That's not a fun way to do it. There's this filter button here, which could be helpful. So again, you could say, I'm going to filter on swim lanes where, let's say we had marketing was a swim lane. So I'm only going to bring in the marketing items. And if you wanted to add other items or filter something differently, you could just have different criteria. We had filter on my boss. Now that was this column here, filter on my boss. So any item marked with a Y, I could say, these are items I want to show just for my boss. This column here could be, these are items I want to show just for my team. So this is one way you might think about presenting your data, and that can help you save time. So for example, it said, okay, if I'm going to filter items for my boss, I apply that, it just filters these items here. And if I clear that filter, they're automatically picked for me, and then I could add additional items if I wanted to. I'm working with a wimpy project file in Excel here. I promise I'll bring in a more robust one from project. This is just to show you the concept. So I'm just going to import them all. And when I do, it takes a second and it generates your slide. Now here, this is where the real advantage is, and really in the digital transformation that we're talking about. So now what you can do here is manage your project data from Excel. So you can manage things in the source file. So let's do that. Let's give a couple examples. Maybe this partner NDAs, let's pretend the date slips. So maybe it goes to the 12th of February. So we've changed the date there. Let's have a rename. Maybe the marketing team is going to get upset if it's sales agreements. We'll make it marketing agreements. And let's drop something from scope. So we'll get rid of this guy, say that's actually no longer in the project plan. It's getting dropped from scope. So I've got just a couple changes I can do in Excel. I save that. I can come back to Office Timeline here, and I can refresh this data. So if I click refresh, it tells me the difference between what's going on with the timeline on my slide and what's going on with the data in my source file. And you can choose to accept those changes or not. If I accept them, I'll just say finish, and it updates my slide. I don't have to recreate the slide. I don't have to start from new. I can just simply use this information here. And hopefully that's going to be time saving. Now, inevitably, we get the question of, hey, that's handy, but what happens if I now start editing my timeline here? So I move a milestone date here, and I shift a task. It actually gets a little bit longer. So I've changed I've actually changed my project data, and I save those changes. Does that information go back to my source file in Excel? The answer is no, it doesn't. We are only going to bring in data from the source file. So the question is, okay, well, what do I do next? Well, you can come here and export this information on your slide to Excel. So if you export it, I'm just going to put that on my desktop, and give me a moment as I navigate on over there. Ooh, okay, hold on. So I'm opening up that Excel export. And so here it's exported the data that was on my slide. So I can either use this as a record. So anytime I want to know what's on my slide, or just keep a record before I make any changes, or I could use this new data and paste it into my source file and use that as to put those changes into my source file. So it's not the most elegant solution, but that does help in terms of managing your data and staying on top of it. Okay, let me do the same thing here with a project plan. So here's MS Project. You can see is our Gantt chart on the right. Not something that's easy to show to execs, a lot of detail, and too big really to put into a summary. In this project plan, I have a couple things. So I have, first of all, the names of tasks and milestones, and I have dates. In fact, there's a number of date columns in this particular project plan. Also, we've got a swim lane and a sub-swim lane. So this is development, we have testing, we have release, and sub-swim lanes, which further divide those. So development, we've got scoping, development, testing, we have stream and integration, and so on. And also, just as we did in Excel, this exec timeline column. This is a best practice we actually learned from one of our customers, and they said, hey, this is how I filter my data quickly. I create these columns in my project plans where I just highlight the items I want to show to my execs. Again, you can do the same thing if you want to create another column to highlight items just you show for your customers or perhaps your team. So just something to think about. Okay, just as easy. I can come to Office Timeline, do the same thing. I can import, but this time I'm actually going to do a little something sneaky. I'm going to import into a template. So I'm going to select templates here and find a style that I like. So this is a good one, Executive Roadmap, and I'm going to import into it. So I'm going to import from Microsoft Project, It asks me to find the file. So where's the file? So I've got to go find it. Here's my Excel document. Let me open that up. I beg your pardon, my project document. Again, same process as Excel. We have a mapping column here. We've got our swim lanes. We've got our task names and percent complete, dates, and so forth. And I'm going to click next. And now, if I select all, I get this little warning down here that says, hey, just you want to be mindful. We recommend 50 items or less. You might want to filter that down. So you can do that a couple ways. Again, you can cherry pick, as we said before, or you can also use project level filtering. So you could filter down. I think level 2 is a good one with the titles of these. Or you can use that filtering we talked about, that customer recommended, that best practice, and the same thing we did on Excel. Different ways, different criteria you can apply. So whatever works, I'm just going to use this here. So we've got 16 of 87 items, and I'm going to hit import. It's the same process as Excel. Imports from MS Project. Just takes a moment here. And what's nice about this one is it imported into that template. So immediately I have a much better visual, in my opinion, than the default one here. Now, it's not going to be perfect. You might still need to do a little bit of work. So for example, I have this duration here label. I have that's hanging over. I might move that. If I find like sometimes my names might be too long to fit within a task, I might move them. So for example, here, in these green tasks below, the names are all within the tasks. Up above here, they're not. Well, why is that? These particular tasks are showing percent complete. So that one's 12%, that's 26%. These tasks may or may not have been started. All of this is customizable. You could say, you know what, I'm just going to move that, and we'll talk a little bit about how to style and customize it in a moment. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So point is here, you can import again from project and again do the same thing. You can manage your project data within project plan here. And each time you make changes, you can come to Office Timeline and you can refresh. And hopefully that's a work stream that'll save you time. Particularly if you have a report for a project that you need to constantly report every 2 weeks or every month, or a number of projects. If you sync them up, you're not creating slides every time now you have to do an update. You can just simply refresh your slides as needed, and hopefully that's saving you time. These, again, these slides look good and are driving the conversation that you want to have. Okay, I'm going to pause.
Awesome.
I'm going to pause just for a second there.
Yes, awesome. Thanks for this, Jonathan. Yeah, I'm seeing so much value here because, especially like for digital transformation projects, we're connecting strategy with the implementation is very important. I think one of the challenges that I've generally seen on these kind of projects is, when you don't have this kind of a simplified reporting mechanism, it makes this integration difficult, connecting the strategy with the implementation. And not only that, but to also do it in an incremental fashion, because digital transformation projects are generally projects that you want to see continuous value throughout, in different phases, and so what I'm seeing from your presentation here is that what Office Timeline helps you to do is, yes, there is a need to have, the long-winded, reports with the different tables and the information. But it's also very important to involve our key stakeholders at different points when we all need to realize value, to move forward.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think this point is well nailed down from what you were saying there. And I don't know if you have anything else that you would want to share. Jim, you have anything to add here? You're muted, Jim.
Time keep. We have
You're
about 19
muted.
minutes left.
Yeah, you're muted, Jim.
No, I'm not actually.
Okay.
Can you hear me,
You,
Jonathan?
Yep.
Yeah, it's about 19 minutes left. So if you want to continue for a few more, we don't have any questions yet.
Okay. I've definitely got more things to show and happy to show.
All right.
So I'll get back to it.
Okay.
So what are the couple things we can show? First, I want to talk a little bit about editing, because it's one thing to have a slide created quickly for you, and that's nice, but it's another thing to be able to edit it, and the editing isn't a pain. So in this slide here, um, I'm going to show you some of the things you can do to edit. So I'm going to come to this edit timeline button here, and that brings us back to, this is the drag and drop environment I showed a little bit at the beginning. And the value of this is here you can move things around and stylize a bit. So for example, um, I mentioned this name being outside of the task. If I didn't like that, these names can be drag and dropped around. Any label or date that you see here, I can shift in different spots. I could move this name in the middle of the task. So now I'm starting to get into a little bit of the aesthetics and the styling of my slide. Um, One of the things we recommended folks is, oftentimes if you're fighting for space, space is a premium on the slide. A good trick is to put things in the row. So if I can take this task and I can put it in line with this task, I gain a little space in my slide. Same here. If I do that down there, I can gain some space. And anywhere else I might be able to do that, I would consider that. These can be flipped. Uh, Sometimes that helps save space, sometimes it doesn't. Depends on you as the artiste. Everything can be moved up and down, and of course you can compress. So these are just a little bit of some styling tips. We also have this style pane button on the right here. So this is really where the magic happens. People ask, how do I make my slides look like these templates? How do I get these colors? Well, you use the style pane on the right here. So it's contextual. If I click on a milestone, it presents milestone options. If I click on a task, it presents task options. And it really just gives you a number of options, everything that you might want to edit. So for example, I'll edit shape. I'll click shape here. The shape module expands, and there's options for the shape. And I can say, you know what, right now they're arrows. I don't like that. Let me change that to maybe a rectangle. And it'll change just that shape. And then to make those edits quicker, you can use this apply to all button and say, I'm going to select shape and apply that to all tasks on my slide. So I'm going to uncheck the swim lane only. I don't want it the swim lane. I want all tasks, and hit apply. And now all tasks are rectangles. And you can use that power for everything. So for example, right now, these tasks have durations shown in weeks. I could say, you know what, I don't want to show those durations in weeks. I want to show those durations in days, and I want to make them orange so they stick out, and we're going to make them bold and make sure they're all on the right side of the task. And so then I can go, okay, I'm going to use all these properties, hit apply, and now suddenly they all should, oops, I think I did that this swim lane only. Yep, let me do that for all tasks. But the point is here, you get to see how you can make stylizing quick and fast. And that's one of the things we want to do. We want you to be able to create slides fast, so it's not a pain, so you're not spending a lot of time on reporting. The other thing I wanted to show folks is, as I mentioned just recently, we have here this new ability to show dependencies. So I'm going to turn that on. And now when I do that and I click on an item, I get these little black dots. We call them sort of jet engines on the side here. So if I click on this milestone, let me zoom in. You can see these little black dots on each side. And these enable you to just drag and assign your dependencies. So if I'm going to this task, I'm going from the end of this to the beginning of this, or I could go from the end to the end. There's different types of relationships. You can just drag and start to put in your dependencies. And now the tool is smart. So it'll allow you to either enforce scheduling, and that's what it's asking me here. It's saying, hey, is this a start to finish relationship? If so, I'm going to enforce it. And if I say okay, it's going to move that task. So I'll hit okay, and it shifted that task to begin once this task ends. That's one option. Another option is you can say, nope, you know what? I don't want you to enforce scheduling. This is just manual. I just want the arrows just for the arrows, the aesthetic. I want the visual, but I don't want the schedule enforced. So that's another way you can do that. And
hello, John.
Yeah.
Sorry for the intervention. Jim, I think we have a question from the audience.
Yes, we do. We're asked, is the dependency, I guess, feature only available in Pro Plus?
Yes. Yes,
okay.
It is.
That answers that.
Thank you for the question. I was just about to show, if I go to this edit data view, so here's the drag and drop environment. Here's the other tab with the data. You can also edit your dependencies, and you have with this predecessor column here. So this is saying this is row number 10, testing is the predecessor for this one, unit testing. And then you can edit these. You can choose the relationship, finish to start, start to finish, start to start, finish to finish. You can add lag, and so on as you need to. So they're great. They can be edited. They can even be stylized. You can color the arrows. You can hide them. You can also import them. So if you have dependencies in your project plan from MS Project or in Smartsheet, they can be imported as well. Again, all of this hopefully is to save people time when they're creating their reporting, making it fast, and making it easy and with visuals that look good. All right. That's really, guys, all I have to show in the tool. I'm hoping that presents people with some ideas of how they can speed up their workflow.
Jonathan, I'm waiting for questions to come in, but you've answered the technical ones, I think. I have two that maybe you can answer. One is, do you have enterprise licensing? And two, do you provide team training?
Okay, those are great questions. Thanks, Jim. So our enterprise licensing is, we don't do like a floating license. To be honest with you, we work a little bit on a trust model. So what an enterprise would do is we would recommend is they pay for one subscription and then put multiple licenses on that one subscription. Instead of signing up for multiple subscriptions, Pete has a subscription, Mary has a subscription, Sue has a subscription, and managing that becomes a pain. We say, no, don't do that. Have one owner of the subscription and then put as many licenses as you need on it. We don't track licenses by user. So if Mark signed up for a license in his organization, there's no way for us to go, okay, Mark has a license, and then if Mark leaves, that's it. Instead, we do it by machine. So if you have 30 people in your team, and some leave and more people come in, the licenses can be shuffled about and traded in that regard. And then training. Yes, we offer complimentary training for teams of 3 or more. So if you're on a PMO team or you have folks who colleagues who work with it, we love training. We have a training team specially set up. We typically can do half-hour or hour-long training sessions, depending on what the customer wants and how they'd like to get the best out of the tool. We also offer free webinars. So if you come to our website, you can literally speak to our product designer, give him grief, say, I hate this about the tool, or I really love this about the tool. Hey, when can I see this feature coming in? And he'll listen to you on the webinar, and that's something you can sign up for on our site.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for that, John. And the final one from my end is As we're fast approaching the festive season, John, headed into 2023, do you guys have anything to share with us, the audience? Any nuggets, any giveaways, and anything that you guys want to share? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for anybody who's on this call who is not an Office Timeline customer, we're offering the Pro Plus edition for the price of Pro. So, if you haven't purchased Office Timeline and it looks like a tool that would help you, look, I'm not here to make a sales pitch. If it doesn't look like it doesn't help you, don't buy it. But if it does look like this is a tool that'll help you and a solution that'll work for you, we're offering people from the digital series a discount so that you can purchase the Pro Plus edition for the price of the Pro edition. And just mention that, Mark. I don't know if you want me to share an email afterwards, or post it on the screen here.
You could chat it out if you
Okay,
want to, Jonathan.
let me yeah. So let me.
Yes.
That'd be
Sure,
the
John.
easiest way, most direct way to the group.
Okay. I'm looking for chat, speaker chat. Okay, what would you like to
Keep the
share?
chat
So,
up on the right there. You should see it's up. Hard to describe what it looks like. A couple little circles.
did that come through?
No. Let me see if I have your email from my communication with you, and I can push it out. But we'll wait for any questions too. We have about 7 minutes left. So
Okay, hold on. Okay, I see it there. So let me. I
you
beg your
don't.
pardon.
Yeah. You can. It'd be okay to put it in the public chat.
Yeah. So just reach out to sales at Office Timeline. Um, Tell them you saw this digital series episode 6. Um, and you
Sales
and
offer timeline. You said.
uh, yes. So it's in the chat.
Actually, I didn't see it. I'm going to type it in again just in case. You might have put it in Q&A or something. Timeline.com. There you go. Oh, I see. You did. Okay, it was up a couple. All right. These things come in weird, like they don't come in the right order. Any other questions, folks? We have about 5 to 7 minutes.
Are you seeing it on stage, John? I just I
Yeah.
posted up.
Yes. Thank you.
If not, Mark, do you want to tell them about February?
Yeah. So firstly, I just want to say thank you guys for attending this episode with John and us. I think it was a great episode, where John showed us an in-depth demonstration of the power of, just using Office Timeline to help us to convince our stakeholders, key stakeholders. Sorry. And I also want to say thank you so much for attending our previous episodes. We started in February of this year, and it has been an amazing journey so far. So I just want to say happy holidays, guys, and we are definitely looking forward to 2023. And our
Yep.
first episode will be in February. You know. So thanks again, guys. Thanks for coming out today, Jim.
Yeah, I
You
was
have
going to
any
say
final
that
words?
our next presenter will be keyed in, and they do portfolio management software for PMOs. So you won't want to miss that. Near and dear to my heart because I've done a number of PMOs. So we just confirmed them today for February 22nd. So watch for LinkedIn and Twitter and all these things where we'll promote that. But we're not quite sure what their talk is exactly going to be. We haven't ironed that out, but we know that keyed in is coming on February 22nd, 11 Eastern, to talk about portfolio management, and we'll narrow that down to a specific topic.
Awesome. So, guys, again, we always say feel free to check out the PMO Leader community on YouTube, PMO Leader, and check out the webpage, thepmoleader.com. There's a lot of stuff there to improve our knowledge base, So feel free, guys, check it out. There are all the recordings from February up to now. You can also check that out. You know,
And
John, any final words from you, John?
yeah, I just want to say, Mark and Jim, thank you for hosting us. We're it's an honor for us to be here, and we like what you guys are doing. It's great that you host these series, and we're pleased we can be a part of it. So thanks for having us, and yeah, thanks for the folks attending. Hope you have a happy holiday season.
Yeah, it was great for us too. Very interesting software. I haven't seen anything quite like that, so I'll investigate that for sure.
Yes, thanks again, John, for coming out, you and the team, and thank you so much, guys. Happy holidays, and we look forward to seeing you in 2023. Bye, guys.
Bye bye.
Hi, everybody.
Bye.
Mark and Jonathan, I have to run quickly to another webinar. I'm not hosting it. I'm